Yeah, great to see you again. And
Nice
thank
to
you
see you.
very much for taking the time to speak to me today. It's fantastic being back at Basel, being here at the tower and enjoying the beautiful views of the Basel skyline. Also a milestone year for Roche. Many congratulations on your 125-year anniversary.
Thank you.
What a successful story that is. So the pharma industry has been a big part of Switzerland's economical and technological development. In fact, Switzerland remains home to some of the world's most important healthcare institutions, as well as home to many successful startups and spin-offs. In your opinion, why is such a small alpine country such a big player in biopharmaceutical innovation compared to its much bigger countries across Europe, but also around the globe?
Well, I think first of all, it's the attractive, predictable and stable political and economic environment in Switzerland that's certainly attracting innovation in an R&D. I think another factor is the very close collaboration of the academic institution, the private industry. I think that's really exemplary in the way that's working in Switzerland. And last but not least, I would also think that access to global talents. Switzerland is an attractive place, I would say. So it attracts global talent to come in to pursue their careers. And so I think the what we mentioned before, the collaboration, as well as the openness of the market is a key success factor here. I think it's maybe important to notice and throw a few facts in about the healthcare industry or the biopharmaceutical industry in Switzerland is that the industry is investing about double the amount than the turnover, so close to 7 billion in Switzerland today. And I think Switzerland is a unique country in this aspect.
Definitely. I mean, the attractiveness, leads me into the next question around diversity. And certainly diversity is one of the key drivers for innovation. And a lot of companies, through some of our insights at Deloitte has stated that diversity is a key component of being a successful company globally. Switzerland has an internationally diverse workforce. However, do you think enough is being done to promote diversity in all its forms in the workforce?
Let me first say, I think diversity is essential for innovation. I think having the best brains coming to Switzerland from an academic science perspective, manufacturing, businesses, is really crucial for the companies. And I think Switzerland is not only for the biopharma companies a hub, it's a hub for other industries as well, like the financial industry. So I think it is important to stay open and attract the talent to Switzerland. Switzerland is an attractive country to live in.
Yeah.
I think we all agree. I think if we drill down a bit in diversity and looking at from a pharma company perspective and zooming in onto gender diversity, I think industry has made tremendous progress over the past 10, 15 years. The number of female participation in leadership position has increased from 20% to about 40%. I think that's quite a good progress, but certainly more needs to be done. It's a continuous journey on that.
Yeah. Staying briefly on the topic of diversity, clinical trial diversity, something that I'm pretty passionate about, has been a major topic of discussion for a number of years. And certainly the pandemic highlighted the challenge of recruiting patients from ethnic minority into trials. Since then, pharma companies have made a point of emphasizing their efforts to improve diversity into clinical trials. However, do you think enough is being done by pharma and regulators to improve diversity in clinical trials?
I think a lot is being discussed in the US, and FDA has given clear guidance. I think in Europe, certainly it takes a bit more time. It's work in progress, I would say. I think some of the thoughts in terms of improving could be, how do we select our clinical trial sites? How do we go into the communities where the patients are being taken care of? How do we build trust with those patients? I think there's maybe a bit of mistrust in some of the groups. And so how do we overcome this? We need to work with the study teams on the ground in terms of being maybe a bit more conscious about the selection of participants into studies. We could also think as companies, how do we reflect the diversity with our study teams in the company as we recruit for such studies? That's just a few thoughts, but I think a long way to go, actually.
Yeah. Just reflecting on the pandemic, one of the things it did expose was the cracks not only in our healthcare system, but in healthcare systems around the globe. What, in your perspective, should be the biggest learnings for Switzerland?
First of all, let me say, I think the Federal Office of Public Health, the BAG, has instituted very, very quickly a dialogue with all the players, and I think that helped certainly to take decisions and moving forward, and maybe something to take forward. I think the other point is we can be really proud of what we as a healthcare companies contributed in terms of bringing to market the vaccines very quickly and treatment options for COVID patients. Something I have to say we're really proud of. I think also what worked well, certainly the resilience of the supply chain, medicine for patients on treatment, and new medicines have been largely available. I think if we look at what do we learn and what do we want to take forward, I think the accelerated approval, the work between pharma companies and Swissmedic hand in hand to prove the products very quickly, something we should look and how do we could take the learnings here forward. I think the dialogue, the open dialogue with all the players in terms of addressing now this pandemic, but also preparing for better healthcare in the future, something we should really think of how we could institutionalize this as a learning out of the pandemic.
And certainly, the story around the fax machine.
The famous fax machines.
Yeah.
I think, yes, certainly you're absolutely right. I think one of the learning is we need data to take decisions. And so the fax machine where patients or positivity rates were faxed to the BAG, everybody's laughing about this, but it clearly points to the fact we need an integrated data platform to take the decisions in a fragmented healthcare system in Switzerland. So how do we bring this data together? How we make it accessible and govern it correctly is an important task.
Definitely. Digitalization, AI, and big data sets are driving innovation and efficiency across pharma. What are the opportunities and challenges specifically for Switzerland?
I think, as we just said, digitalization in the pandemic was an important learning. But I think it's not just in the crisis. I think it's to improve outcomes of the healthcare system of current and future treatments as well. So I think Switzerland is actually placed quite well in terms of the capabilities that are in the country, in terms of access to systems. And they have all the global players, the healthcare players in the country. So really an advantage. However, I think if we look at the Swiss healthcare system, so access to Swiss healthcare data is certainly a challenge in a very fragmented system.
Yeah.
I think the healthcare data availability is a challenge. And last but not least, it's if we look at medical or healthcare innovation, digital healthcare innovation, the number of patents that are being issued, I think we can clearly say that Switzerland, and politely said, is somewhere in the midfield in Europe. There is certainly room for improvement. So I think what we should focus on is integrated data platform in Switzerland. We need to make sure the rules of engagement are clear. How do we protect data? How do we use data? That needs to be further clarified. And last but not least, maybe it's a bit about the war for talent in that space. I think healthcare companies can work with the environment, but certainly if the conditions do not further improve, talent and investments will flow into other parts of the world.
Exactly, yeah. As patients become more empowered, have access and more control to their data, patient-centric healthcare is very much an aspiration of the future. In your perspective, where are we today, and what do you think the future could hold for us?
As we think about patient centricity, so improving outcomes for the healthcare system and patients through engaging with patients, I think the one sentence from the NHS comes to mind: no decision about me without me. I think for me that resonates very well. And so kind of we all have been patients in a journey in the healthcare system. And I think we all have been frustrated, and we need to learn how this could be improved from having a diagnosis, having a treatment, sitting around in the waiting rooms. Why can't I do this online? I think that clearly shows how we need to think. And I think for me, it's about how do we engage with patients? How do we learn how this patient journey really happens? I think there's a lot we can do. The second element I see is access to innovation. Certainly an important point also for Pharma, as we can clearly see that the timelines for access to innovations are slipping away, specifically for new technologies and new treatment approaches. But I think as we work toward this, I think patient centricity is nothing that the pharma industry only needs to be addressed. It's something that we, I think individually as companies, but also jointly as players in the healthcare system need to address. And as we said in the very beginning, by engaging with patients.
Exactly, and building that trust with them. Exactly. So Jörg, I think we are on time. I want to thank you very much for taking the time and for a very insightful discussion. And also thank you to Pharma, our co-sponsor, for their support. I hope the audience enjoys this recording. And we very much look forward to inviting you to our next Pharma in Focus interview. Thank you.